Oh, party everywhere.
You two ready down there? Okay.
You talk more than they do.
We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You guys, is it going?
Yeah.
All right, at 7:01, we will open our public hearing for our accessory structures.
Okay, the planning commission has been looking at this the last few months. Mayor Andy and I had been discussing this for a little while, but we've had several requests to reconsider the accessory structure size that is allowed in our city ordinance. Right now, the current ordinance calls for 900 square feet, and if anything is requested above 900 square feet, the applicant applies for a variance. You know, we've had a couple of those the last couple of years. Like I said, we've had a handful of requests because sometimes I'm just gonna say a 30 by 30 shed might not be big enough for a couple vehicles and a workbench type situation, so the planning commission asked us to research what other communities in the area have done. C.J. Betcher did a great job researching. I think he had 11 or 12 different cities in the area.
Yeah.
Planning commission looked at all that, decided to kind of marry, if you will, the ordinance that Eagle Lake and Elysian has. So basically, everything is pretty much the same. The setbacks, none of that has changed, but what we're looking at is increasing the 900 square foot limit to 2,000 square feet or 50% of your rear yard, whichever is less. I don't know if you guys know my yard well enough, but I mean, I have a pretty decent sized lot, but I wouldn't even be able to do that, 2,000 in mine. So there's a lot of lots in town that they're just not big enough to do. Yeah, like I said, thanks to CJ for doing that. The planning commission does recommend that you adopt the ordinance that is attached here. If you do that, we will notify the summary notice in the newspaper next week, and then once it's published in the newspaper, it becomes official. Do you have any questions for CJ or I or Kyle?
When did we move to the 900? Was it always 900?
No. I want to say maybe 8 or 9 years ago.
And the reasoning for that was, do we know, or was there
Been lost in time.
Yeah, I don't honestly know.
Gotcha.
My concern in it is the 9-foot sidewalls. If we're wishing to get some of these campers out of sight 6 months of the year, you can't fit that in a 9-foot sidewall building. And the 20-foot for height, I think, is fine, but you're gonna need a 12 to 13-foot sidewall to get a camper in with an overhead door.
Well, the planning committee's main goal behind it was to try to keep the integrity of the neighborhood and the yards.
So if they want a taller building, they can still seek a special variance, correct?
Correct.
You could, yeah.
Conditional use.
Conditional use.
Or, for lack of better terms, if you want to jack that up right now, then you don't have to, instead of 9.
And, do we need to add something in there that says, an additional building on your property can't be used for a business? So that somebody doesn't put one up to run an auto repair place, or,
Well,
something
they're not in a business district, so, I mean, zoning would cover that.
Yeah, and I mean, if that was, then you would have a home occupation situation, that's in our ordinance already.
Okay.
Yep.
I would like to see it, the 9-foot sidewall stay, and let the planning and zoning commission handle it on a case-by-case basis if somebody needs higher sidewalls. We've got one building in town that I know of that don't really think fits the yard the best, and trying to stay away from that. Yes,
Is this public comment?
it is for you,
I don't want to interrupt.
Just her, or what?
anybody.
I was going to say, I thought this was public hearing. I have some questions. First of all, what does it cost to apply for a variance?
$300, I believe.
Okay. And I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into this. I do think probably I have a comment about campers is pretty legit. We've got a lot of campers that get parked out, and even during the summer, bad weather comes in and they've got a shed. That's a lot better with a camper than being to get up to the field. I suspect that some of the reasons why it went from whatever it was to 900 feet to what you're considering now is just the sheer size of lots and how that has increased as we put new development into people. My lot is almost an acre, and we have lots on the west side of town and out in Northwood that are, at least some of them are much larger than the old lots in the eastern part of town, and that drives some of this. Is there a way that you can tie the square footage together with the sidewall and even to 12 feet? I think most campers would go in at a 12-foot sidewall. But just a thought, by the time you put up a 2,000 square foot shed, you don't have to pay somebody to store your camper. At least that's me thinking it.
Yep.
I'd be interested with
We have 10-foot garage.
Okay, we need to say names and addresses, please.
Dean Alter.
Yep.
of Beaver County.
One has fair one. We have 10-foot garage doors, and we have a small camper and our camper is mounted. So I don't think even a small foot would be really even reasonable for most camper owners. And our garage walls are like 20 foot, so we have a plan of 10. Yeah, we can't get our own camper into our garage.
And I think a main part of this discussion with the planning commission too over the meetings is that, Andy, you were alluding to this, but the accessory structures, the siding and the appearance has to be similar to the house, to the residence. That was something important that.
Yeah, maintaining the aesthetics and not ruining the neighborhood, so to speak.
Right. Yep.
Is there any other comment on this?
So we could set a baseline, basically, and those who are building it for camper storage. I mean,
Apply for variance.
They apply for a variance, right?
which I don't,
This should cover 90% of what most people want to think.
I
Yeah.
agree. I motion to adopt ordinance 2025-F as written.
All in favor?
Hey,
We will close the public hearing at 7:10. Is there any changes or additions to the agenda?
No, let me try to get, this is like hazard pay, me trying to break my neck. Where's the cursor? I'm just trying to get the agenda back.
We should have Clint move over to the table with me. Oh, yeah, there.
Use shift and your left arrow.
All right, so I do not have anything else to add to the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda?
Yes, you have the minutes from our last meeting, April 14th attached. You have the receivables, and then also the payables for the last half of April, first half of May. Just a couple items to point out. There were some expenses that came across for the development of the comp plan, so you'll see that in the payables. And then we did have a few different members of staff did some training over the past 3-4 weeks, so you see some expenses for that. And then we also, I think there's a bill for about $17,000 from WW. We did some sanitary work, some sanitary sewer improvements a few weeks ago. And that's, everything else is pretty much routine. Sarah, Joe, do you have anything?
Nope, I think you covered all of it.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public forum? Anyone here to speak to your public forum tonight?
If it's regarding the SRO, is it coming now or wait?
Right now, this is the public forum portion. Yep.
All right, Lauren Tester, Waseca County. My name is Lauren Tester, and I'm here today in my capacity as a local business owner, frequent supporter of our local businesses, resident, and mother with young children at our public school here in Janesville. Last Thursday, May 8th, 2025, Mr. Erler, the superintendent for JWP School District, sent a notification to JWP families, staff, and community members regarding strategic adjustments and budget realities. This is for the upcoming school year, 2025-2026. I am here to bring to your attention the significant concerns expressed by many residents regarding these recent announcements of budget cuts within our school district, particularly with the reduction of staff, including our school resource officer. First and foremost, tonight I wanted to ensure that all members of our community who may not be on the email list are informed of these changes. The public forum hosted by the school board will be held next week, Monday, May 19th at 5 p.m. in the Media Center. If interested, you may speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on this matter. However, there will be no answers or dialogue provided. Additionally, if you are unavailable to join in person, there is a petition created to collect names to provide those to our school board. Those will be posted on the Janesvillians Daily Chat as well as the Janesville Community Ideas and Happenings, which are both located on Facebook. So the recent decision to implement budget cuts has caused considerable distress amongst the community. Many residents have voiced their concerns about the potential negative impact these cuts will have on the safety and quality of education for our children. For instance, with the removal of the SRO from the school, this has raised serious questions about maintaining a secure environment for students, staff, and also our community. The presence of an SRO has been instrumental in ensuring the safety of our students. Their removal could lead to increased invulnerability to incidences within the school premises. As stated in previous city council meetings, year over year, our emergency lines have continued to have an increase of calls. During this school year alone, our SRO has responded to 67 incidents and counting. Many of our volunteer fire department members are also our staff members. So anytime they get a phone call, they are leaving the school, reducing the staff on site to help our students. Additionally, the budget cut and decision to not hire a formal and educated director of teaching and learning and reassigning those roles to potentially undereducated administrative staff could compromise the quality of the education, safety, and reduced individual attention to students. So given the gravity of these concerns, I respectfully ask each of you, our members of City Council to consider the following actions. Be an advocate on maintaining essential safety and educational services. Hold a public meeting where we can gather our concerned residents and have the ability to discuss the potential alternatives and explore other funding options or reallocations that could mitigate the impact on critical staff and services. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak through public comment?
I do have additional printouts if there is anybody in the community that was not included on that email. I would like one.
Thank you.
Should I leave it here?
Yeah, you can leave them up there. Notice and communications.
I have none.
Council reports.
I have none.
I hope you don't have any. Double A?
We had our, golf board meeting. Actually, I have my notebook open, the number of, memberships was up considerably. As far as upcoming projects, the roof and the HVAC, they're not a immediate problem, but probably gonna need to start getting the ball rolling on some upgrades up there, or out there. Mowers are gonna be coming up soon, not this year, but future. Start taking a look at replacing some of that stuff. The league, they are basically all full, and there's another league that kind of started on Wednesday nights. It's actually a part of the Tuesday night league, 'cause there's not enough time or room to play out there on Tuesdays on men's night. There will be beverage cart use when you can find one, hopefully every Tuesday, or when the weather's nice at least. And that was about it. The grass on the, driving range, I know they reseeded some of it. I haven't been out there in a week or so, but
It's looking a lot better every day.
so, things are looking good.
He doesn't have a second beverage cart, or he doesn't have staffing?
Staffing. Ivan, you got anything?
EDA meets right after us, we'll meet again tomorrow. Last month when we met, we talked mostly about, offering bids for our empty lot as far as getting a contractor to come in and do the reconstruction work and what was actually needed. That was the big part of that. Park Road, we, had a training kind of for us board of directors. We sat in on a webinar on how we can finance our windows and some of these other projects that are coming on. That's about what I did the last month, so.
Todd?
Planning Commission, of course, talked about the accessory and what we just voted on. We did a lot of talking on ways to increase appeal for town, what we can bring in, potentially what the populace wants. I floated forward an increase or a different approach to transit. I know there's a lot of people in town that would like to be able to head to Mankato or to have more options. To that effect, I reached out to the big three in the area, Smart Transit, True Transit, and Land Air, to talk to them about possibilities. Two of them said that they would look into changing their grants, because it would just be talking to the state, maybe finagling the grants a little bit, and we could talk about somebody swinging through town. Smart Transit, which would be the obvious one since they already have the contract, so to speak, they said they cannot do it right now, but they are not unwilling. We have to wait to this was, personnel and equipment. There is one company that was interested, but they can't because it will affect smart transit, so there's a lot of backroom stuff that has to happen. I am keeping in contact with them because they expect it to change maybe after the first of the year, but right now, that's what I got for that. As far as the park board, due to inclement weather, I was not able to attend.
Tornado warnings and stuff?
Multiple tornado warnings, yeah. My babysitter didn't want to be there, so. We will be meeting in a week and a half, I believe,
Oh, yeah.
for both park and planning.
The nursing home has decided to have their 60th celebration on their family picnic night, which will be July 13th, Sunday. We're gonna have a big barbecue truck, I believe, out there, and they'll be inviting the community to join them and stuff, so big old celebration there. Otherwise, that's about it for the nursing home.
July 13th?
July 13th, yes.
Administrator report?
Yeah, somewhat brief here tonight. Attached is the April reconciliation from the bank, and we have the cash balance reports from last Friday. We have received, in part thanks to Lauren Tester here, that's in the crowd tonight, but we did receive a couple grants for paint for the library, so we can work with those and work on the planning for that, and I think we talked about possibly painting in the fall, after all the summer programs are done. Also attached is the first quarter payroll report, and if you did the math, the payroll report is 24.8% of the year, which is pretty darn good, because it's supposed to say 25%. So we're right on target. As far as some training, I was talking about this earlier tonight, Sarah Joe just attended some training last week, and then at the end of June, I will be gone at the League Conference in beautiful Duluth. At the end of July, we're part of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, so I'll be way up north of Bemidji, the last week of July, and that should be, I think that's it for training and stuff for me for the year. So just wanted to put those dates out there for you. I also want to mention one quick item, if anybody noticed on their Janesville Connect app today, the first mosquito control will begin next Monday night, so it'll be on Monday, May 19th. And then you also have the brief from the coalition. Legislative session ends technically on Monday. There is some talk of possibly having a special session. I'm going to quit giving my opinions, because every meeting I say they're just not getting anything done up there, which I guess I just said my opinion again. But we'll just have to keep an eye open and see what's going on. That is all I have for a report.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Looks like we got Jacob here from Prairie Ridge.
So Andy touched on it a little bit, but the grass is slowly and surely recovering from last year's floods. Majority of the seed we planted last fall has taken and is growing, but it's just a slow process. We'll continue to improve as time goes on, but I'm hopeful it's going to look pretty good by the end of the season. I would like to mention that Bjorn Peterson and Travis Preem donated a bit of their time and some seed to reseed a pretty large spot on the driving range that it was pretty obvious the seed was not going to take. It's kind of a really dry spot. So they spent an afternoon and donated the materials for that, so that was appreciated. We've been working on a few JAGA-funded projects. We added a cart path to of our 5 and 6 tee boxes. It was a pretty high traffic area, lots of carts going through there. We kind of routed all the carts out and around everything. I think that's a huge improvement. We've added hazard markers to almost the whole golf course at this point, all the hazards and ponds and the ditch. That was a good improvement. And then we've just spent some time making some turf repairs. The biggest problem for us is all the cart traffic, especially when it gets dry like this, and they're all driving in the same spot. Can get beat up at times, so slowly, trying to make those repairs, but, yeah, so that's what we've been working on. Kinda getting into a normal routine now, that the weather has turned for us, and, yeah, it's been busy out there, it's been great so far, so. Yeah. Any questions for me?
Jacob, was any of that, reseeding that you did last fall that didn't come, was that covered under a warranty of any kind, or?
Well, like I said, the golf course hasn't made any purchases. That was donated from Bjorn and Travis Cream. They asked me if they could do it, and I said I wouldn't turn them down. It wasn't something I had planned on doing. But yeah, they decided to do it, so the golf course hasn't spent any extra money yet.
Okay.
And, I mean, that could change, I guess we'll see in the fall, but I'm not expecting it to be substantial. There may be a few spots that need some more seed, but I think all in all, we'll be all right. Yeah.
Any other questions for Jacob? Thank you.
Simple enough.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
Comprehensive plan.
Yes, so,
Maybe we'll be done with this one.
what's that?
Maybe we'll be done with this one now.
Yeah. Our comprehensive plan is 20 years old, and we spent the last several months, CJ, again, the main focus of his internship was updating this comprehensive plan. The planning commission has reviewed this over the last several months. What CJ mainly did, and CJ, you can certainly talk here if you want, we updated all the demographics and all the figures in the graphs in the comprehensive plan. We did update the maps, so they're now current. And I guess I want to thank CJ, I want to thank Bolton and Mink for helping with those maps. I also want to thank the Council of Governments. They reviewed it with us a few different times and offered some suggestions. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on April 23rd. As required by law, the Planning Commission holds that hearing. There were no public comments. We did, however, get a comment from a business owner before the public hearing. He was excited and happy to see that we were updating it. So we are here tonight with the Planning Commission recommendation for you to approve the amended comprehensive plan. According to law, state statute, we do need a 2/3 majority of the council to do that. Planning Commission recommends approval. CJ, do you have anything to add?
There's a copy right in the lobby.
Yep.
For public review.
And I promise, we'll look at it every couple of years and perhaps update it more than, like 3 presidents ago.
I did notice, on the maps, there are some apartments that aren't listed. There's a park that's not noted. Just small things like that we can take care of after approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which map are you referring to?
Well, it's the southeast park isn't on the map.
Which map though?
The one that lists the parks. I'd have to go back and look at them
Well,
again,
Yeah, stop it.
so, but,
Yeah, if it's,
but I know before we had...
yeah, good, community facilities is on the community facilities. I think, I did notice that there was a bulletin in map where it was
Yeah.
omitted, but, yeah,
And I know we've had a couple of things where, when Bolton and Mink did their financial planning for us for the year, they said, well, we didn't know about that. So we need to make sure that this is totally complete.
yeah.
I don't think we need to waste time here tonight to go over it.
Well, stop in someday, Ivan, and we'll just, yeah, point them out to me if you would.
Yeah.
You're all right with that?
It's not like I circled them.
Well, Mr. Councilman Ramas, would you like to make a motion to approve the amended comp plan with those few items to correct?
I would so do that.
The words right out of my mouth.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. All right, next item on the agenda is Main Street parking.
Yes, we have an agenda request form was filled out, asking the city council to look at the 3-hour parking on Main Street, the 2-block area of Main Street. We have a 3-hour parking Monday through Friday, 7 to 5. And quite honestly, over the years, we just really haven't enforced that. So the request was made to look into enforcing that 3-hour parking. The 3-hour parking is in our city code, it is in our city ordinance, so it is there. So the request was to discuss that.
What will that do to some business owners that park in front of their businesses?
The reason I brought it up is because the north side of our block is usually full, and the south side is all open. And to have a business, especially when people are in a lot of pain, you have to have access to your building, and there's times that the parking spots are filled up. So what I have done the last few years is, if someone's parked there longer than 3 hours, I got a ring to watch the road. And if someone's parked longer than 3 hours, I put a little note on the first 2 parking spots and says it's a 3-hour parking spot. I don't do the whole street. About a month ago, someone that works at the lab, I always take a picture of it, and so I have documentation, because if they did it too many times, I would come in and report it, or, you know. And someone from the lab said, well, Ben said we could park here. And I said, well, there's a 3-hour parking limit. Anyhow, it just blew up, and I need help. If I'm gonna run a business, I have to have access to parking, and I'm not asking for the whole area. I understand it's not the same it was when I moved in, when we had, you know, all the businesses along there. But there's gotta be some compromise where my patients can park closer than the post office.
I would sure think we can come up with something. Maybe the staff wants to look at our neighboring towns and see what some of them do as far as their parking ordinances.
A couple of years ago, we addressed that small parking lot to the east.
You know,
Did that ever get, cleaned up? Because there was several parking stalls in that alleyway,
there was.
directly east of her,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
did that,
It was cleaned up for the most part.
okay, because if that didn't
What
quite
about-
get taken care of and there was more, you know, that would free up a lot of spots.
Free up some spots to go around back there.
Correct. I just wanted to make sure that,
The parallel spots that are on First Street.
One of the other issues in parking on that end of Main Street is all the apartments we have, and they take up quite a bit of space. You can figure, you know, if there's, occupant is two-person occupancy, that's 2 cars. And it doesn't take long to fill up our main street with all the rentals we have on that end of town.
And the businesses are going to go under if they don't have the access to the businesses.
Yeah. So, those rentals should be encouraged to park on the back side of the building. That's my thinking.
All right, here, this is the city parking lot right
This
here.
is correct.
And yes, Mayor Andy, you did suggest staff look to see what other town, I started doing that this afternoon, so.
Well, look at it, let's come up with some solution, bring it back to us next month. We'll figure some type of compromise out.
There are some, spots within the city parking lot that are limited to 2 hours.
Yep.
On this side.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm concerned with if we're gonna try to enforce this 3-hour parking. We don't have police staff to do that.
No. Which is probably why it has, part of the reason it hasn't been enforced for the last several decades.
Right.
Lauren Tester.
This actually is not public comment portion.
I just want to say I second, as another business owner on Main Street, that it is an issue.
Okay.
Okay.
So is this there's a handicap on First Street, on that corner?
Yep.
And that's about
And then how many,
10% of my patients, so it doesn't help a lot.
well, I mean, if they're in extreme pain, I would think they may have handicap placards, but I understand what you're saying, but can you necessarily say that these 2 are my parking stalls when there's other businesses on the street? Because Toby can't necessarily say, these 2 are my stalls for Toby to say.
Right, I mean, we can't start going down that road.
Right.
But if all the parking spots were filled, they could get in somewhere closer than the post office. Which is
Yep.
what's happening.
Yep.
But are you needing handicap stalls is what you're saying?
No, because my patients are in pain, I get them out of pain, they don't need a handicap. They just need to have access. That isn't on the other side of the block.
So the ones on the side aren't
People
working?
come and park for 8 hours, that makes it really tough for other people to come and find a place to park.
So the ones, but the ones on the side of your business are full
Those are
too?
usually taken most of the time too,
Okay.
because Monty has his customers that get oil change stay there, the bank stays there, the labs have people there, so there's rarely openings there.
Okay.
Yeah, I can certainly check.
Let's look around, let's come up with some type of a solution to make everybody happy.
Yep. Thank you, Kelly.
We'll come up with something to that'll work for everybody.
And look at that back lot again?
Yes, we can look at that again. We can look at that back lot again and see if that
Oh, sure.
is being used for parking the way it should be.
Yep.
Next on the agenda, closing a portion of West Front Street. This is basically for Songs in the Park.
Yeah, and Andy Holman, I think you had suggested this at our last council meeting, but we're looking to close West Front Street for the Songs in the Park series and possibly Farmers Market. If we officially close it, we can barricades up and all sorts of things like that. So, the resolution talks about that, and then the second page of the resolution gives the schedule of the events for the music series.
Do we need to include the words farmer's market in here, because that, if that would get going, it may run the vacant weekend where there's not music?
Well, I believe the original plan this summer was to do it only during
Okay.
Yep.
music in the park.
That's fine.
Is that, yeah.
I think a farmer's market is, you know, if it turns out well and we rest it at that time,
We can add another one in.
it wouldn't be a problem.
Motion to approve resolution 2025-10. All in favor?
Aye.
Temporary liquor license for Haydays.
Yes, we have received the official application, but the chamber is looking for the temporary liquor license that we approve every year for the Haydays event. We will get the insurance, proof of insurance, I think, in a day or two or something. Haydays is a month away, so what happens is when this is approved, it gets sent to the state, and the state will send it, the appropriate paperwork, obviously. So we're just looking for a motion to approve that tonight.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Under the public safety portion, A is the SRO status.
Yes, on Tuesday, April 28th, Chief Johnson and I did receive notice, it's in your agenda packet here, did receive notice from the school that they were requesting the termination of the SRO contract by giving us a 60-day notice, as stated in the contract, effective June 30th. And as Chief Johnson and I were discussing this with the school, we did offer a couple options or a couple, financial assistance, so to speak, for the program. We did come up with two things that council can look at tonight. You can accept the June 30th, contract termination. And if that's the case, and there's no SRO, then money that the city had budgeted as revenue from the school to cover the personnel costs, we will not see that the rest of this year. And I did approach, JWP about that, and I said maybe a second option would be, would you consider carrying this program through Christmas break so we could at least continue to receive, those payments for the 6 months? And then in that 6-month period, we can talk about what the future's gonna be, if that makes sense.
The budget end of it isn't that important to me, because if the SRO was cut, Sheila, who's currently our SRO, would go back to her full-time position, and we would cut part-time help. So it isn't gonna have a humongous financial impact on us. Steve?
That's, per the contract, the way it would work was that the SRO would go back to the road, and newest hire would get bumped.
Okay.
So Justice would be bumped from full-time to part-time, and she
Okay.
would retain that. And I think we had her about a year.
Yeah. Anyway, let me go farther into where I was. I don't see the SRO position as a budget thing at all myself. I don't know, I think this is a community thing, not a school versus city thing. I think we need to work with the city and the school together and see what we can do to keep this program alive. There's a lot more to it than just safety of the students. There's training in the school that they're learning. I think it bridges a gap between students and law enforcement that when I was a kid, the mentality was the law is out to get you. Now I think that's changed to where they understand that they are here to serve you. So my opinion on it, I guess, is I would like to see if there's some way we can work with the school. And I'm not necessarily just speaking through the end of December, I'm speaking,
The contract we have signed is a 3-year contract.
and longer than that, but I don't know, what's your guys' opinion? I think it's an important position, I guess, for the city, for the school, for both.
I feel it's extremely important, but, as far as our budget goes, the residents of Janesville, there's how many kids that live in the country. I don't feel that we should be solely responsible.
No, I'm not saying solely, I'm saying let's work together.
I'm all in favor.
Let's work together and see if we can...
Finding, alternative routes, but I couldn't agree more that the program is very, very, very important to our community.
having served on the school board previously, this time of the year is typical for cuts in staffing. And you'll find that probably 90% of those cuts are never realized. Those people are hired back before the next school season. So I think by holding it out to December or the year end is the thing to do.
Do you have any comment on this?
I think we should do anything and everything possible to keep the SRO. That's my opinion as a council. As a parent in the city, Officer Jewison has had a major impact with my daughter, who does look up to her, and she's helped a lot. So anything I can do as a parent to help the SRO, I'm gonna do it.
And I have been on the, I know I'm not supposed to talk, but I've been on. If we go through December like you're saying, Chief Johnson and I were talking a little bit with Jeremy earlier about this. If we were to do that and to help them with the first part of their new school year, would the council be willing to switch the 70-30 split to 50-50? I mean, we don't invoice them as much in the next 6 months. I mean, it would cost the city a little extra, but it would be less of a, budget burden for the school.
So Steve doesn't get to buy another car next year.
He's not gonna next year.
What year is the contract up?
The 3-year contract was just signed in July of last year.
So there's a year and a half left.
3 years. We just, there's 2 years left on the contract.
Okay.
And I'm also gonna mention there's some state funding that's going to the floor right now, and we're gonna look into that. That the school does get, that they were gonna reallocate that pays for portions of this. So that's another kind.
I guess I heard support from the board here today to continue with it somehow.
I would definitely think so, and maybe I'm by myself, but I'm looking at more beyond December, but at least the rest of our contract,
Yeah.
at very minimum. So at this point, we authorize Clinton to go do some negotiating?
Sounds good.
Are there any like hybrid type programs out there where?
There are some places that do a few days here and there.
Sure. And I'm not saying like are there, I was just curious, are there other options, but I'm all for having Officer Jewison there.
So you're like saying 3 days at school, 2 days on the road, so to speak.
One of those full-time officers is part-time in the school. So we could leave that now.
Does the Waseca County Sheriff's Department contribute to school resource officers? Have they been asked? Can we ask?
We've asked, the problem with that is that we relinquish that position to them, then that's all.
We have full-time officers. So we're rotating.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see some.
Well, I would say at this point, we're not gonna accept their letter,
Yeah.
and I'll need a motion for that, and from there on out, we'll just have to, they have a school board meeting next Monday, and they'll probably have more to say after that, would be my guess, so. Clinton can handle it from there?
Did you make that motion?
I did make a motion.
So is your motion not to accept the notice?
Yes.
And to ask Mr. Rogers
To renegotiate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Next, we have the turn back of Front Street. We've been working on this for a couple of months now, or
Yeah,
a
we've
couple of
been working on
meetings
this
now.
for a while. I've given you different information a few different times. The county board did meet, and they did adopt their resolution turning back County Road, State Aid Highway 44 to Janesville, that little portion between Main and Teal. The city council would need to adopt a resolution as well as sign the memorandum of understanding, which states that the county will provide funding to the city so that we can do some upkeep on that road fairly soon, we hope. If everything is signed tonight, it's my understanding that County Highway Engineer Jim Kohler will submit all the material to the state aid office, and then we'll go from there. So looking for a motion tonight to adopt the resolution as well as approve the memo of understanding with the county.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
4-1. Sarah, second. Motion to adjourn at 7:50.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're good?
We are good.